Board Site Committee meeting, 12/3/20, vocal test.
usually get good snow.
I know.
Even though we don't like it, we don't get it.
No.
We usually get it like 3 or 4 inches.
Yeah, I don't, you can blame everything on Trump and global warming.
I don't really like the 20-degree weather. I'm not a fan of that.
No, I don't like 20 degrees. Anyway,
No,
makes me want to go to Florida.
I'm ready for spring already.
Yeah. And we're barely.
That's why I looked over at you. Everybody.
John, George, Carolyn. Anybody?
Okay, you know, she kind of, she kind of sometimes.
2 wheels.
Yeah, I can spoil them when we.
There she
Here she is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that'll work.
Thanks for bringing it.
Hello, sweetheart. Come right here, Carolyn.
It was just like that.
There you go. Thank you. Brian.
How you doing?
Carolyn,
This guy that
I
does
think
these
that
maps,
charger's yours.
he'll customize them.
Yes.
If you hide the different, they'll send you pictures.
Right.
I can turn around. And they got that, he'll put those on the map, and then he'll show the elevation, the plan. He'll show the elevation, so you can have
Did you get that box, Carolyn?
pictures. It's really,
Yeah, it's hers.
yeah,
That's really cool, yeah.
it is very nice. It's on canvas. It's really nice.
Huh.
Okay, you get a couple of pictures.
You know about Nate or anything?
No, I think we're good.
Correct.
It's 2:00. We'll go ahead and get started on the SI committee here. We've got 4 different items on the agenda. I want to welcome Dr. Khan, Chancellor Khan now, and Cole Strong, Vice President. And the first one is about the Lee University property request, and I don't know, was it 2 or 3 weeks ago, Dr. Dyer, myself, and Hal visited their track complex, and when it's done, board, it's gonna be a world-class facility. We were really impressed. But Hal, if you wanna walk us through the request, sir?
Yes, sir. Well, they've approached us about the section of property that we have down at Mayfield. You know, Mayfield goes on down. They've given a handout, and I think you can see it on their handout. You can see Mayfield, probably the one with the red lines is the one you can see the best. But you can see Mayfield there in the shadow, and you see where the property goes all the way down toward the greenway. And so as that area just over the creek is an area we haven't used. It's an area that our principal, Mr. Stevens, has said that he doesn't take anyone down and use very much. It's grown up area. It was where the community garden was, and there's a story behind how it got so grown up. But you know, that's the area we're talking about, is that area down there on the greenway that used to be the community garden. And I'm going to stop there because I think Dr. Khan and Mr. Strong are probably more eloquent at speaking about their vision and what they want to do with that property, if that's okay with you, Charlie.
That's fine.
Thank you very much. Do the rules allow me to go over there?
Yes.
When I get over there, can I take off my mask? I don't want to break the rules.
Blue line here.
Thank you very much, Mr. Taylor. I won't wait to spend a lot of your time. I think we're just giving you a chance to hear personally. Boy, I tell you, walking in this building, it's been a long time. I fall in love every time I walk in this building because I fell in love so many times here when it was the old Y. I don't remember the people I fell in love with, you know, just different ones at different times. Thanks for the opportunity to make a request of you, and that request is a request that, for which there's really No immediate, return and no give back in a certain sense. And it's just pure request. And that is that we're developing a new multi-sports complex, as we're calling it, a track and field venue, down on lying along Parker Street, between Mayfield School and Ocoee Middle. As you probably know, I'm sure you've driven by there. We're deep into this project, and we never really thought about this piece of property. It's the piece of property that lies below Mayfield School. It has the little creek coming through it, a little stand of trees and brush, and as Mr. Taylor said, it's the trees and brush have grown up quite a bit in this area. This is an old aerial back before we began developing our property. We were just doing grading and so on. But there's this is a parking lot. This will be a kind of a passive field, which is actually needed to be the landing area for the throwing events, javelin, shot put, discus, and hammer. But because it's such a wonderful piece of property, we decided to go ahead and put drainage and an irrigation system in there to make it into a natural turf playing field just for intramurals, ancillary use, just for not for any kind of competition or our intercollegiate teams, but just to develop the property. Well, as you might know, if you know this area, this is what we call Schimmel's Park, where we've taken an old creek bed that was all grown up many years ago and cut it all out and put a walking trail around it. And we named it Schimmel's Park after one of our late faculty members. And then this is where you cross the road there on 20th. And what you do now is you come across a little bridge, across the creek and down in, and then the greenway runs all the way up to there alongside the creek. All right, in developing the property for this project, we combined the old county track football playing field that belonged to the county and the county board of education. And then we went to the Philhours and bought property that runs all the way around it. We didn't have enough property to do all that we needed to really have a full-size NCAA certified official track and field venue. So what we have now is a piece of property that is a combination of those two pieces. As we've begun to develop this, our property line, by the way, goes all the way to the creek, all the way down through here. There's an easement for the city, for the walking trail, the greenway, all along through here. So I'm sure you know that property well, those of you who are veterans on this board and been a part of that whole Mayfield School negotiation and development. So as we've been back and forth over there, Mr. Strong is Vice President for Operations, and he supervises all of our capital expansion and construction projects. It has for many years, by the way. Many of these more recent nice big buildings and exterior development that you see on our campus down around where that clock tower is now, and all that, what used to be Trunk Street and over toward downtown. Cole is really the person who's been responsible for developing all that. So Cole is responsible for the development of this track. He and I have been back and forth over there, God knows how many times. It's not an exaggeration to say hundreds of times in the last couple of years. And what you do is you go through this little passageway to get to this property. And we begin to wonder, well, I wonder if the city has any use for that property or any potential use for the property. It seemed that perhaps that was passive property that when you purchased from the Philhours the property for Mayfield School, you purchased that as a part of the rectangular plot, and there's not, perhaps they don't have a use for it or an immediate use for it. So, we thought, well, we'll ask. We'll ask if the city can give us that property, which is about 1 3/4 acres in total, if I'm not mistaken, and let us make it a part of this whole big complex. So that when you come along 20th, we can open that up and you can see through and we can take care of it. There's a fence line back here. There's 6 homes that face on Parker Street from here to here. And their back fence is the western boundary of your property. So that's what we're here for. Now, it's hard to go into a group of people and ask them to just do you a favor without something to offer in return, but that's the situation that we find ourselves in. We're saying if you would allow us to add that little spur to our multi-sports venue, it would greatly enhance the access to the venue and the aesthetic value of that greenway that goes through there and open it up visually and psychologically from 20th Street all the way through to the end of our multi-sports venue. When I say multi-sports venue, it's kind of a way of expanding the vision from just a track and field. So we built a building there in the middle that will have public bathrooms, concession stand, locker rooms for track and field teams, big equipment storage. And so once we got into that, we thought we needed to put proper parking down there. So we've got 110 parking spaces that are built in on this south side of the property. Then we had the decision, do we do this in kind of what has become the Lee signature style of red bricks and precast lintels, or do we just go ahead with a metal building and take care of business? And we decided to do it the more expensive way. I mean, we want it to look like a really fine facility, and I think one thing leads to another. You know how these projects happen. So once we got along Parker Street, then in order to make it work right, we needed to put a big retaining wall across there, so you might see that retaining wall. Once we got into the whole idea, the decision had to be made, do we go with synthetic turf? You know all about that issue. The cost of maintaining a good natural grass turf for an area that big is pretty extensive. We lose so many playing days because of bad weather, soft fields, wet fields around our campus. We don't have any synthetic turf fields, so we decided, okay, we'll put a synthetic turf in. Then when you decide to go with the track itself, in order to meet the requirements so that records will be certified, either TSSAA or NCAA certified, then we had to meet certain specifications which broadened the footprint. We wound up with a project we're going to be thrilled with, and people who've come to check it out think it's a spectacular project. So we're really eager to get this finished sometime about the first of the year, God willing, and to get it open for our spring seasons. And while we're at it, we think it would be greatly enhanced if we just developed this as part of it. I didn't know any better way to do it than to call Dr. Dyer and say, will you guys come out and take a look? And if you think it's reasonable for us to ask, we'll come ask. So I'm here, Mr. Chairman, to answer your questions, to be the subject.
Questions?
I have a question. Will there be any parking down there that we could access for programs that we have? Because we're pretty much landlocked on that property.
There will not be any parking down here, and we've never thought of putting parking down here, but all of our parking is up here. And we're trying to find ways for cars to, of course, get off the street or off of Parker Street.
Will there be a walkway then between us and that property, between
Mayfield
and that area?
No, there is a walkway all the way up through here. Now, we will include a walkway here and on the other side of the property as well, going around. If you drive by there and see, we'll be behind the scoreboard. So that's how there will be access. This is an existing walking trail. And one of the things that made us think of this, just watching the traffic, the pedestrian traffic come through there, people, the traffic on this little walking trail, make sure I'm in the right place, is growing, clearly growing. This is the part that comes out on the other end over on 25th near Jenkins or Spring Creek and that little development over there. And what they do is they come out here and then what do? Very frequently, they then cross the street and connect with our Schimmel's Park parking trail, or they walk down Parker or up 20th back toward Ocoee. It's a pretty well-traveled pedestrian passageway right now. So as far as people getting from here over into this area, that will be a hard surface parking area, walkway. We've never really thought about, I don't even know if you were, that's what you were.
And the biggest complaint I've heard about Mayfield is that when they have a program, there's no place to park.
No. I honestly, I don't think this would help address that problem because we have not envisioned parking in that area. We've envisioned it just as passive, and nothing. We started by saying, well, we'll just ask the city, they'll let us mow it and make it look better, we'll be glad to mow it, which we'd still, we said, well, what's your bottom line, Paul? Well, I'd like you to give it to us. If you can't give it to us, I'd like you to lease it to us for 40 years for $1 a year. That's our deal with the county for the rest of that, for their property. Or you could be like Phil ours and sell it to us, but we would not be highly motivated buyers. So.
Dr. Khan, you probably remember, but board members, none of you were on the board. The reason we got that part down there was because we had agreed with the Philhours to build a bridge right there beside the Melton's house from Parker Street over to the Philhour Lake Road house. And so we had that as a promise of our contract when they sold us the land. Later, though, they decided they didn't want that bridge, they didn't want that access, and the Meltons were very happy because they didn't want a road beside their house. And so we ended up with that little piece of land right there that was absolutely of no value to our school system. We had some entrepreneurs put a garden down there for a while, but how do you keep that mowed?
Well, I didn't even know it was ours for the longest time. And then by the time I found out that it was actually the school system property, it was so overgrown and we don't have the equipment to take that on. And that's really why it's been sitting there is we've had other things that we took on and there's steel stakes that were sticking up from the garden. And then you had 10 foot of growth that grew up over the top of that. So it's a very difficult area to just come in and clean it. Sounds like you just clean it, but actually a piece of heavy equipment is probably the best thing to take in there so that you can knock everything out of the way. If you try to take a bush hog in, you're just gonna tear it up. And that's been kind of the issue we've run into with it. And
So I think it's kind of a landlocked property that is of no value to us. I believe it could be a real value because if it opened up and the greenway was more accessible, it would be pretty. It would be nice in front of our school instead of, we've got the retention pond down there. That's kind of ugly. But then you've got that. If that was opened up, I think that would be a real asset to the city, to all the citizens.
You found out anything? I'm sorry.
No, I'm finished.
How you found out that stormwater?
no, you told me something I didn't know today that we needed to know. It'll actually help out a lot. We were concerned about stormwater fees. We pay about $24,000 a year in stormwater fees for all our properties. And stormwater fees are based on ratios of open property for drainage compared to your roofs and your asphalt. So there's a ratio there that you're looking at. Brian would be familiar with that when you're looking at building something. So our concern has been if we get rid of that much green space, if we no longer have that in our school system's name, are we going to get punished on stormwater fees? Will that affect us that way? So I've been talking with Jonathan Joe, Chris Groom, and then I talked to Corey Dybel yesterday. So that's really the thing I'm trying to get the answers from the city on I haven't gotten an answer on that yet, but you just opened up a door that I didn't know about, knowing why we even have that other property. And so, that may not come into play. But, you know, certainly, I think we still need to follow that and make sure that that's not gonna affect us with our stormwater fees and cost us, you know,
You know how we were required to put in those 2 retention ponds? We've got
Right.
one down in front and one in the back. And I know that creek never floods. Keith Spillauer grew up there and he said Dr. Con, have you ever seen that
No, and
creek flood?
I didn't grow up with Keys. I was a little farther east, but, but I did grow up sneaking into Phillar Lake. fishing there. No,
Never saw the creek.
it's in the floodplain. It's in a 100-year floodplain,
So you can't build anything permanent on it anyway.
and I think I was gonna pursue that with the city. I think, in talking to Mr. Strong, one of the biggest things today was they have heavy equipment down there right now. So whether we went with leasing the equipment, the property, or whether we went with giving them the property or selling them the property, any of those things, all of that we can still decide at a later date. But the heavy equipment costs quite a bit of money, and it's down there, and Lee University is willing to take and clean that off right now if we give them the go-ahead. So if you don't mind me bringing that up, Dr. Clark.
Right, and no, I'm happy for that, and if you don't mind my interrupting, what's here right now is a big berm of topsoil that we've pushed out of the way as we've gone in and put in our irrigation and everything. That's kind of the thing that made it timely. So our contractor, Tricon, is saying, what do you want me to do? You want us to, spread that topsoil and I've said, wait just a minute, let's just see, we can just develop all of this. It would be passive. I mean, we don't see any use for it either. It's not wide enough for a full playing field. But it could be a very nice piece of property if you've got good grass on it and kept up with it for going down there and throwing a frisbee with your child or walking or whatever. And this traffic that we see so much over here, I think it would be very nicely developed for them.
Would that extend the greenway? Would that extend the greenway? Is that what you're saying?
No, the greenway is intact. The greenway comes all the way to here. And so the greenway goes on around and ends on 25th, below Jenkins and that development. And the greenway also ends here, but because it's right across the street from our walkways, it's kind of a natural continuity. And I read that they want to tie the greenway back in toward the west to the rest of the greenway at some point in the future. That might happen, but right now this is on an easement that was still owned by the Philauers, but an easement to the city to build the greenway.
Al, do you know how much those fees are? How much money are we talking about?
I'd have to break that down. I'd have to go find them. We get billed just on a yearly basis, and I haven't looked at them lately.
You think
so
they would just, if we did this, they would just erase that? Or
No.
not? No, we'd still have to pay those fees?
No, those are federal. Those are a federal requirement that we can't walk away from, that we are required by. It goes through the city, but this is a federal program, and everybody has to pay stormwater fees now.
But it may not affect our stormwater.
It may not affect us. That was a big question mark we didn't know about. And so I couldn't give when we met that day, I couldn't give an answer until we researched it. Like I said, what you're telling me changes that a good bit. I think we can probably go back into the plans for Mayfield and find that somewhere, hopefully find that information somewhere.
I
And
have
I could,
another question for Dr. Cohn. If you all kept it all mowed, could our students from Mayfield go down there on field day or use it to throw frisbees or whatever?
Of course, and that's what we hope this to be. The idea that we would spend this much money to just have a handful of track meets for Lee University track and field team would be nuts. Even I couldn't sell it at Lee. But what we believe in, and that's one reason we're calling it a multi-sports complex, is it's going to be a wonderful asset, and it will attract that kind of, it'll become a nice grassy field, if we maintain it in that way, that will run all the way up here. Now, remember, this landing area stops about here for the track and field, even when this is just too narrow. It's a little spur. If we had the money, honestly, I know this is a public meeting and I shouldn't say anything about property acquisition in a public meeting, but since I'm no longer,
President.
yeah,
Chancellor now.
since I can't go around buying up people's houses without there's 6 homeowners there. And we've been in conversation with all of the owners of these properties at various times along the way. If we had the money, what we'd love, what you do is go and buy this, and then all of this becomes useful, and we really go after this, but we can't do that. We can't do that. So this becomes the natural boundary. The creek over here is a natural boundary. It makes this so narrow, it's not useful for any kind of, it's not wide enough for anything but, the occasional, intramurals guys can get in there and practice and play around, but for a Mayfield class or Mayfield to come down here to have a field day or a day out on a warm spring day when you're getting your kids out, it will be ideal for that. The question of could some kind of access be created in here in years to come after you see what this is and feel like it's worth it? Of course, anything's possible.
Dr. Khan mentioned to us that day, he was gonna clear all the way to the creek, right? And as you go into Phil Hour there on the left, that area that drops off is Mayfield property. If that could ever be cleared, maybe get a little more green space for them and maybe a bridge, because I think Dr. Dyer said Randy Stevens, principal, does not like to go down that sidewalk to get there. But going into Phil Hour and it drops off, maybe some of that area could be cleared a little bit. Because Mayfield needs some green space some way or another.
Yeah.
And I also talked to, when I was athletic director, we started a county-wide track meet. We had a boys championship and a girls championship. We had a rotating trophy. We went to the 3 schools, and our track is not good now, Bradley's not good. And we talked, and Cole said it'd be great for recruiting students. And when I did that, it was only the 3 high schools in the county. But sometimes you'd have 6 or 7 at a track meet. But you had a girls rotating trophy and a boys rotating trophy, and, that's something that Larry Carpenter and your track coach would have to get together. That'd be a great thing to have the county championship at Lee every year. But when he said they're gonna clear all the way to the creek, and maybe we could eventually do something on our side. I mean, that's down the road, but if you had that cleared, and you had a bridge to go there, it'd be a lot easier. Randy's concerned with the kids walking down that sidewalk to
You're
get
talking
to
about a walking bridge.
walking bridge over there.
We've seen, when we developed that Schimmel's Park, remember that was old Card property, Bob Card Senior. And there were a lot of rental houses facing on Parker Street. And then there was this grown up, it's kind of like this part of the creek is now, there's trees and, but you couldn't even see the creek. When we got in there, we cleared out, and you got all that natural rock running in that creek bed. It's really quite attractive. And it's become one of the more attractive passive parts of our campus. Now, all that's under floodplain too, and that's one reason we didn't have any way we were ever going to build on it. But I think it showed us what a difference could be made with just what you're talking about. Clearing the brush and the low-hanging branches up to the creek, so it reveals the creek as a topographical feature instead of just some sort of dark, something, there's a creek back in there somewhere. That's what we would envision doing. If we got access to this, then of course the creek runs right along here too. And then we would, as soon as we get into our property and get the bills paid and take the next step, then we would want to clear our side of the creek. Now, the other side of the creek's still your side of the creek.
You never know down the road, that place where all the houses are, at some point, years on, Lee might be able to access that, and we'd have a huge area, and if we could be assured that we would have access to use it, You know, that would be great.
I think you're absolutely right, and yeah, we've seen far more ambitious things than that happen around our campus. It's just 6 homes, and not only could it be bought, I could give you a number pretty close to what it could be bought for, but it's not in our,
Right.
Short or intermediate term plans. I mean, we have talked to these people. We've negotiated pretty hard with some of them, and we've figured out that it's just too much money right now. We've got kind of all we can say grace for over to make that good. But we can clear up to the creek, and we'd like to make it a continuous piece running all the way through here at 20 if possible.
I don't know who's the right person to ask, I'm thinking maybe Hal. So it's my understanding, I just want to make sure I understand correctly, that that area is on a floodplain and can't be built on, period. Right?
Right. Anything other than it's used for the community garden, something like that.
So
What
you
it's
couldn't
being-
even turn around 5 years from now and sell it to somebody who wanted to build something on it.
I don't believe so. I don't want to sit here and tell you I know for sure, but I'm 90% sure that that's not possible.
Is there any way of estimating a cost of a path to that property from Mayfield?
I can get you an estimate on
Because
that.
it'd be nice if maybe if we did some sort of a lease agreement, that maybe the lease over the course of the 5 or 10 years might pay for that to be built, to give that access. That would be a nice number to know.
Well, and that's what I was continuing to find out with the city. And then if you want, we can look at what that looks like. I can get you an estimate on what that would look like to build a bridge across there. Probably like one of the Forest Service bridges that, you know, you have to have it high enough that children can't go off the edge of it. So,
Yeah.
so we can do that. I can get an estimate for that.
The one they had in Schimmel Park, I used to go with that Tennessee and tennis shoes, and we were full one day, and we had to park over there, and there's this, I don't know if that would meet the standards, I think it's pretty nice, the bridge you have there.
Yeah, and I think the volume has to be high enough so that if you do they get that 100-year stream, it'll carry it and then meet the requirements of bridge rails and so on, but that's doable. And we've done it, we did it twice there in Schimmel's Park, once a little farther south, up near what we call the Leonard Center building, which our health clinic is, and then closer to 20th Street. So that's doable with a reasonable amount of cost. I would have to tell you that as a potential partner in a lease, we're accustomed to leases for $1 a year. So it wouldn't create a capital expansion fund over there. And in fact, we would also be happy to look at the cost of putting a bridge in there. I don't think this property would be worth enough to us that we could pay a fair market value on an acreage basis or something for a lease.
Do you recall how much it costs to build the bridges over at Schimmel's Park?
I surely don't, and
Ballpark
That
idea,
would have been a long time ago.
long time.
that was a long time ago, and I just don't remember. I remember the big issue, those come around under, that creek comes around, as all of you know so well, Old Mayfield,
Right.
my old elementary school. It comes down below Mayfield, so we had to, remember what a problem it was covering that creek, and it makes the sharp turn, and for a long time, that was an open ditch. Our students called it the ditch of death, but we couldn't get permission to cover it because of the regulations from the state. But they finally lightened up on us, and we covered all that and made it much, much better. City Public Works is going down and covering that all the way across now. It might be covered all the way across. We, on the other hand, are developing up around Old Mayfield, and we haven't announced it yet, but the city of Cleveland, this has been announced, has conveyed to us that street, that piece of People Street in front of Mayfield and the piece of 14th that runs down toward Parker, which will allow us to develop the exterior and the entrances, the streetscape, sidewalks around Mayfield in a much more pleasant way. And we've received a significant gift from the Summerfield Johnson Foundation to help us with that. On the basis of just making this old downtown area where Mayfield is and where our campus is look better.
Well, if we gave you that property, would you consider assisting us with the building of a bridge across there?
Absolutely. We might even just agree to build it, rather than assisting you with it. Again, I'm saying that not knowing what the costs are, but knowing that it can't be that expensive to put a properly constructed bridge across, where if you wanted to walk students down through here across the bridge, not bring them out here, you know? So you don't have to bring them all the way out to 20th Street to get them down to this property if you were to use that property for a
I think
field
Tom's
day,
got a question.
recess or something.
Being as we know this is floodplain, nothing can ever be built on it. It probably could even get insurance if you wanted to build a house or build a building on it. I'm sure companies would not insure it. It's absolutely no value, zero value at all to us. And we're not mowing it and we're not maintaining it. I would myself like to see this property deeded to Lee University with no strings attached, no bridges and no pass-throughs. If we want to build a bridge or something in the future, that's up to us to do that. But if you're willing to maintain it and keep it really, really nice, it's certainly going to make the place look better. It's going to enhance the look of the school property too. So I would like to see a deed free and clear, no, you know, you want to build a TVA or a, you know, blah, blah, blah bridge. I just.
Well, thank you. That would, of course, be the best possible outcome from my perspective.
But I think we have to wait until Hal finds out about the stormwater, right?
Yeah, I think we just need to make sure that we need to make sure we're not affected by the stormwater, because if we're not affected, I mean, you know, and it's just for you. It's your decision, of course, and I'm just trying to make sure you have all the information.
But if we leased it, we would be the owners and still benefit from the stormwater.
We would benefit by having that as a green space if we lease it.
Yeah.
It still counts as a green space for us.
One of Hal's last conversations this week, you know, if we give you the go-ahead and clear it out and everything, you got to provide a certificate of insurance, is that right, what you said, Hal?
Yeah, and that's,
So if anything happened, then you can call and talk about that.
yeah. So while if they were doing the work on there, that would just cover us from, you know, workers' comp or any kind of liability.
I still like the possibility of having a bridge. We don't have to make it a definite, but having that, because that would give our kids access to that property to be down there for extracurricular activities or picnics or something like that, or just a little study group that wanted to go down there. And you all have access to donors who'd be willing to help you with it, where as a public institution, we don't have that kind of access for donations, you know, hardly.
Well, let me say that we're eager to develop this entire area in a way
Right.
that not only meets the needs of Lee University, but is a community asset. And I promised our donors who were helping us with this property that would be our intention. Obviously, we have thought first about the county school system because of the proximity to Ocoee Middle and the fact that the county owned that property. But absolutely, we would want to develop it in a way that was useful and to the city school kids and to county school kids and to families in the neighborhood and whoever else might use it.
It sounds to me like a win-win situation, you know, for both of us.
I think Dr. Dyer's got a question.
Well, no, I've got a recommendation, and for the site committee members, I know we have all the board here actually, but site committee members vote today. You know, my recommendation would be we allow Hal to continue to do the research to see whether we need that storm water designation for that land or not. And then he could hopefully bring that to the full school board at our I don't think we'll know by Monday.
Don't
That's
think-
our next school board meeting, so it may be the January board meeting. Hopefully we would know by then, whether we need that property or the recommendation would be to deed it or whatever you decide to do as a board as far as that goes. But my recommendation would be to move forward with either a lease or a deeding of the property. But at least for now, allowing Lee University to go ahead and move forward with clearing the property and doing the things that would need to be done while the heavy equipment is there. So that would be my recommendation to you for the site committee.
Then once it gets cleared up, I think we'll be able to have a better idea of value, of it for the community, and how it's going to look.
Right, and I will tell you, Mr. Stevens is very much in favor of what we're doing and what we're talking about here. We've talked, we've gone back and forth with text, and, Lee University doesn't do anything halfway. I mean, if they're gonna do it,
They
they're
do a
gonna
good job.
do it right. So, they're very much in favor, and I think would actually potentially give us more property than we have right now that we could actually use with our kids. Because right now, we can't use that space at all.
It's gonna make
So that
things
could
look a lot
potentially be something that we can use that space more than we do now.
If somebody makes a motion, so it's just be the site committee, could be any board members.
Only
All the
site.
site.
I'll make
the
Right here,
But what is the motion specifically? To pursue the clearing of the land, to pursue the stormwater, and
And then come back with a final recommendation.
Come back with a final
When
recommendation.
it's ready, when we have all the facts in place.
I'll second that.
You second that? All opposed? Anybody? I don't think so. All in favor?
That's just the site committee that can.
That's awesome.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just say, during the time that this process is occurring, I honestly have never tromped into here. I've tromped all the way up and down here, but I've never gone into these weeds and brush and ramble around the creek. But Cole and I'll get our boots on this weekend. We'll go up in there to see what it looks like and try to find out before you get around to your regular going, well, what it would cost to build a bridge. We not only wouldn't be hostile to the idea, we want this piece of, this facility to be integrated into the life of the community. And we think it has potential of doing so. As an old Mayfield school grad, and when I say grad, in those days, Dr. Dyer, we graduated from elementary school, we didn't fool around. I go back to the days when Cleveland City School System was not K-8, but 1-8. We didn't have any city kindergartens. Mayfield, Arnold, Allen, Templeton Hill, and Blythe Avenue. Those were the 5 schools in the city school system. So I grew up at Mayfield School. And of course, we've been gradually developing the old Mayfield School, which we continue to call the Mayfield Annex. But one of the problems with this site, if you want to describe it as a problem, or one of the characteristics of this site, is it is somewhat separated from the community by 20th Street and by all this over here. Anything, it seems to me, and I'm not talking to the motion's been passed, but let me just say, anything that would sort of integrate it into this area west would probably be a good thing. So it could be a win-win in which we, what we'd like to do is not feel like you're leaving our campus and going through this little grown-up area to get to our sports complex. And if we can do that, it won't feel that way. What we could do, potentially, is also create a little more access to Mayfield School that would give it a little, allow for some creative use of this property.
Right.
So I really appreciate very much your positive response to this idea. Mr. Chairman, thank you for coming out, and we'd be happy to talk with any of you or walk around down there with any of you at any time and show it to you. We have invested a lot of time and energy and money, of course, in this project, and we really are excited about being able to roll it out sometime after the first of the year to the public. So if we could find a way to develop it in the manner that we've all described together, where city school system comes out of it feeling like they're better off than when we started, and that would be a great outcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome to stay if you want to. We got 3 more agendas. So I understand you need to leave.
You know, I'd really love to, but I got to go.
That's a nice way.
You might get something.
I better get my mask on. I gotta. We just canceled our December commencement today, by the way. So we've been battling these issues of what to do about COVID ever since March, as you have in the
Yeah.
city system.
Yeah.
Going back over there, we're trying to get all that sorted out. We have a winter commencement scheduled for next weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before we go to number 2, if you go up the Mayfield property, like you're going in the fill out, look to your left where it drops off a little bit, and there's a lot of trees and overgrowth. So that could maybe be an Eagle Scout wanting to do a project, maybe clear that out. And, you know, there might be some more greenery.
I've walked down to that creek. That creek is very much what Schimmel's Creek would look like. It could be very cleaned out. Access could be, and we talked about, I don't want to really mention PRZs too much, but what that would do by opening that up is that whole development back on the other side of the road on Greenway, you know, by APD 40 there, that would make that a much safer walk for those children to walk to school, actually. You know, if we could get that area cleaned up. And maintaining is much different than the original cleanup. I mean, that's, if they would be willing to take care of one side of the creek there, then I think we could probably look at that.
Well, and if we had that walking bridge, it looks like,
Yeah.
even if the parking was a little bit further away, if they had to, they could
They could
park
use
over
that.
there
They
and
could.
access that way with some walking.
If we had a walking bridge, Lee's parking would be really close. Because the Pie Center is gonna be down there at the gas station end. But it would be really close.
How, if Lee was deeded that lot, we kept the other, and a bridge is put between, who would be responsible for maintenance of the bridge?
I think they would if they
And
built it. If they built it, Tom, I think they would take responsibility for it.
And to insure over accidents, since it's linking our property to.
Well, I think that's one of the things that I need to do before we actually talk about this. I will contact Tennessee Risk Management and their risk managers, and they're really good at giving us direction that way.
Mhm.
So that's one of the things I'll go ahead and
Yeah.
make a list, because when you do start talking about walkways, you also talk about T-deck. And then Brian, tell me what else I'm looking at, T-deck,
ADA,
ADA, you know, so,
it's very complicated in a hurry.
so,
If they would take that over, that would be great. Take
yeah, I do think
responsibility
we would, I mean, if it adjoins our property, we're gonna be responsible for a certain aspect of it, no matter what. As far as, you know, making sure it's safe and.
I would assume if we have it on our property, there's gotta be some kind of concrete walkway that gets to that bridge from our property.
Right.
Because that's on the incline, so not.
So we then have to maybe build a zigzag. So there's a lot more to it than what it sounds initially. And I'll just have to try to look at that and bring you all answers by January. It is very beneficial for them to clear it off. They have dozers there. They're gonna take all that junk that's in the ground and push it right out and make it where that piece of property now can actually be maintained. That's the key part.
Number 2 is the canopy projects. It's gonna affect Candy's Creek, Cleveland High School, Stewart and Mayfield. And it's gonna be Al and Brian both. And I was gonna update you how we came to have this extra money.
Okay, do you want me to just do a podium or?
Either way,
Well, I'll tell you what, Brian's gonna talk too, so we'll tag team across the middle if you're good with me sitting here.
Yes, ma'am.
So in talking with the city, we ended up having money that was bonded for the construction left over from our construction project at Candy's Creek. And when we first went into that project, if you remember, we had to do some value engineering in order to meet our budget. And one of the items that's a big one that we value engineered was the canopies that go along the front. There was also a canopy along the back, and talking to the principal, Ms. Irby, she's not concerned about the back. We have 3 buses there they're able to drop off, and that's not really been an issue along the back, but it is an issue along the front. If you've seen how they drop off, they're a very long drop off. And in order to keep traffic out of the road, we probably need to look at putting that canopy back. Not probably, we really do. That's the biggest complaint she gets at that school. So in looking at what we have that we can use towards capital projects, Cindy and I talked and realized, okay, we have some other canopy projects. So instead of breaking a lot of different projects, we might be able to get a better deal if we do what we call a canopy project that maybe has 4 different locations and take care of all of our canopy needs at once. Right now at Cleveland High School, as you know, we had a parent come to us about the drop off for the special needs, and that we really don't have a good place for you in rain, bad weather, to be able to go from the parking lot into the school. So that would be the other need we have. Stewart, we have a canopy that is literally rusting through. That has to be replaced. It's not really repairable at this point, just because it's a pure steel canopy. It would be expensive to repair. It's on the list to repair, but that's another canopy project. And it's not really adequate. If you look at Stewart, where our special needs comes in, the ramp itself is debatable. We really need to change that ramp and make that ramp more in ADA compliance to where it's more usable, especially since it's right in front of our special needs department where they come in. So, and then that takes us to Mayfield. Mayfield, we actually have some liability issues there that we need to address. We've had people trip and fall on the pebbles from the playground. So this would give us an opportunity to take care of a few problems at Mayfield. We could get the canopy for the car drop off. Again, these kids they're having to pile up under one canopy when it rains, and it's very difficult to get them into the cars. So we could build that canopy along the street there, along the playground, where you could have more children dropped off and picked up when it's raining. But that would also give us a chance to build a retention wall along with the canopy that would hold all that peat rock back in and keep it from getting out on the main area and prevent us from having people trip and fall. And so those are the 4 projects that I called Brian, that we had talked, Dr. Dyer and Cindy and myself talked about, that would be in this canopy project that would be considered capital projects. We roughly have around $400,000. We think this would run, Brian got some quotes before the board meeting. I'll send you those quotes. I'll let him address that in a minute. But what we would do is whatever we don't use on the canopy project, we would then turn around and we would use towards paying off the chiller we unexpectedly had to purchase last year. And so that would help us get that debt out of the way.
That wouldn't pay it off, they would pay toward it.
It's not paying off the debt,
It's
it's
not, sorry.
finishing up the payments that we owe on the tiller. We
Yeah.
have one more payment to Interstate Mechanical for putting in the tiller, so it was over the 400,000. So it would help pay for those last 3 payments.
Sorry,
That's 70,000.
that's why she's here, because I can't keep that straight.
And that is paying it off.
Okay, yeah. But that's what we were good. And if Brian wants to address, he went out and he looked at all 4 and he's got a plan he's putting together.
Yeah,
If it's,
we were actually, we reached out to the canopy manufacturer that did the canopy on the science wing, Tennessee Valley Metals. And so they were very helpful with giving us some real-time pricing for all the projects are a little different. Candy's Creek is kind of a long, and it has a little bit of a serpentine segment to it to follow the radius of the sidewalk. And so that one's pretty simple. It'll have lights. That was what we originally planned. So it'll have some power for some lighting there. At the high school, we were looking at connecting back into the entrance on the west wing, that parking lot area, and what's been revised for a special needs drop-off area. So we're looking at a cantilever there so that we don't have posts real close to the road. And then Stewart was I mean, Stewart required taking out some sidewalk, as Hal said, to be able to give us room to put the canopy posts in and then be able to deal with the handicap accessibility and improve on that a little bit. The canopy itself was pretty simple. And then we were looking at doing something over on the other side of the building, that currently doesn't have a canopy. I don't know what part of the building does that lead into?
It's where you go into the auditorium and the gym and for voting and, for PTO. And we get teachers and all, they get wet a lot of times when they're going in that entrance if we have real bad weather.
That sidewalk, and it's always good practice, and especially over doors, especially with the winter, if you get, rain and then it freezes, there's slip hazards, so that would improve that situation. And then Mayfield, what we looked at is a segmental block wall to match the piers around the existing columns of the canopy with a cap, so that would serve as a seat wall, but also be able to hold the gravel back. And then just a simple canopy that would be able to tie up into the existing canopy over by the gym. But the wall would continue on down past the playground, just so that we keep that stone from being pushed out onto the road. So in the whole scheme of things, Candies Creek is gonna be a little more expensive, Mayfield second, and then Stewart and the high school are about the same. But we've got an estimate that we put together that I feel pretty good it's conservative. I think that in this economy, that I think you'll have pretty good interest, that folks will be looking for work. So I think should get pretty good numbers if it were put out to bid, so that it would be completed during the summer. I guess that would be our goal.
Is the bus drop at Arnold still in the low section of the building on the south end? Is that
The
still
main-
the bus drop?
Yes, sir.
I think so.
Is that okay? Does it have canopy?
The problem with the canopy there is it would get hit. Because it's right up against the main road. And so we've looked at a canopy there. The problem, like I said, it's the city road and the entrance to Arnold are right there. So if you put something there, we can make it high enough, but things like garbage trucks, utility trucks, things just happen, they come along, and whatever we put there, it won't last long, being honest with you. It'll probably get taken out, and that's the only reason we didn't include Arnold in something like this, is looking at that. We'd have to make further changes to make something work over there.
Any other questions?
Do we have an estimate?
Yes, and I actually have some copies, where I can send it to you all.
Yeah, I was gonna say that,
Roughly,
we're looking at, go ahead.
It's below the $400,000. I think the construction cost we were projecting was about $320,000 to do all four of those. Like I said, Candies Creek was 128, and then Mayfield was 44, the high school was 52, and then Stewart was 40.
Well, these are badly needed projects,
Mhm.
and we've had parents ask us to do this. The rocks at Mayfield have been awful, and we knew we had to build a wall. That was the only way we could stop that. I think this is an opportune time to take care of these things.
And all these are, these are the standard aluminum canopies that you don't have to come back and paint. They're gonna live a long life.
Brian, is the one at Candies Creek the one that was originally designed?
Yes, similar. We're gonna do some value engineering because, when we're going to try to do it, so we don't create a mess on that existing sidewalk. So we're gonna have to auger the footings and simplify that a little bit. But it'll be, I think it's 10 feet wide, and it'll kind of shift over to the edge of the sidewalk so that the students can get right out, underneath the canopy, and then be able to come in and be in the dry.
I think the community's gonna be really excited about this. I agree with Don, because they've wanted this for a long time, and we really need it. I picked up grandchildren at Candies Creek, and they're out there standing in the rain, waiting for all the cars, you feel really badly, because little ones don't have umbrellas. So I'm really glad we're doing this.
You know, so many things we do aren't visible. And they're important, like HVAC systems, unless you're in the buildings. But this is something that will affect everybody. The public can see this is their taxpayer dollars. And I think that it's really wise to do some of those, not fire sprinkler projects, which you have to have, but they're not very exciting because you can't see them. This would be pretty exciting, I think.
A lot of times you see the canopies as a bid alternate because you can do them afterwards, you know, it's not something that you have to live with, you can add it after the fact, so.
The more we save in the 400,000, the more city can do towards our chiller bill, right?
Yeah.
And like I told Hal, I think it'll be a good environment to put a project like this out to bid, so I would expect good competition.
So for a site committee, my recommendation would be to move forward with the canopy projects as described today.
Did you say we could have these done by during this summer and they'd be ready for next fall?
What I would recommend that we do is to push it after the first of the year and get it out to bid so that the materials can get purchased and be ready, so that when we have the availability to take the areas over, that they can get it and be able to get started in May. So the school's out.
Get a proposal, I think, a recommendation. What do y'all want to look at?
So I'll move that we take the
Krista,
recommendation, Dr. Dyer.
Second.
Carolyn, second. All in favor?
It's just a great example.
This is a discussion. Anything?
Okay, well, that moves to the agenda then.
All right. This will be on the consent.
It got to,
So what we'll do is you'll do it at your site committee report, Charlie, and because it's a vote from a committee, it won't need a second. So you'll just make the motion from the committee and then the whole board will.
Okay, that's good.
we'll add that. Okay.
All right, number 3, update on the long-range planning facility, long-range facility planning, Mr. Brian Templeton.
Okay. Well, thank you. Since the last meeting, we've had further conversation and, I've had the chance to speak with, Mr. Don Shell with Community Tectonics. And he's interested in partnering with us to do the planning piece. We're currently working on, different options. Okay, that what I'd like to do is to be able to bring back to see which best fits. And so there is typically with one of these studies, you'd be looking at existing facilities, you'd be looking at maintenance and all those things. And I think to our advantage, what Hal's done with this comprehensive plan, we can take that and be able to infuse this into this comprehensive study and reduce some of the time that we would typically have to invest. So the other piece is how much involvement that you all want to have with the community and the faculty, the staff, and those sorts of things when you're thinking about middle schools or intermediate schools, or what the long range impact is at the high school. There's varied levels of community involvement. Some systems don't want to involve the community. Some systems do. I think you guys generally do. So we just need to kind of work through that piece so that we can figure out the time that would be necessary to develop that. So what I'd like to do is to see maybe before the holidays if we can get together and talk about that. But at that point in time, we'll have some different scenarios that we can say, okay, here's option A, and it would entail this, here's option B, that sort of thing. So that's in the process. And then alongside that, some conversations that I've had with Hal following up from the past meeting would be that it would make sense to go ahead and move the investigation and the studies at the high school relative to the sewer because of the potential that lies there. There's really no need to hold that up and tie it to. So I reached out to a mechanical plumbing engineer and I have talked through what I would envision the strategy would be as far as meeting, looking at the video, that has been done through the cammering, then figuring out different solutions as to how to reconnect the sewer, in a way that could be possible, that's the least disruptive, to the building, and start to investigate, study that process, and in the end, be able to come back and give you guys good information as far as what that cost would be, okay? And what the time constraint would be. Is this a project that could be done in a summer, or, and so it would involve some on-site meetings, and then some planning, that most of the work would be done by an engineering company that would be working for us as a consultant. But then the end result would be, we'd be able to come back to you and say, okay, here's a way to fix this, or here's more than one way to fix it, and here's what those costs would be, and here's what the time impact would be. So that, and as far as what you're up against, do you want to go ahead and tackle it? Is that something that you want to defer? And I guess that's all a matter of how much that cost is. So, my recommendation would be to go ahead and pull that piece out of the overall comprehensive study so that we could get down the road and make some progress there. And then also with the Denning Center, given that there's some maintenance decisions that need to be made, and based upon the discussion from the last meeting, what I would propose is that we do kind of a mini study just on this facility. And again, we build on the information that Hal's gathered through his comprehensive plan and take it a step further, where we bring in a structural engineer, we bring in mechanical and electrical consultants just to look at things, to make sure that there's no pitfalls in investing future monies in this facility. But that would be an evaluation of the existing components. We'd be looking at code deficiencies, the life of the windows and the gaskets and the door hardware and the roof, and just it turnkey, okay? And then once that's complete, if there's a desire to study how we repurpose it, how do we reuse it? Because I think right now it's not being fully utilized. So if it was developed, what could you do with it? And what I would recommend is that we approach that, and if it's the operations building or other parts and pieces to the system that would come here, we program, what those space needs would be, like you were designing a new building. So you say, okay, if Cleveland City Schools needed a boardroom, meeting room, training room, okay, how many people would we seat? What do we want to do inside it? And we develop the recipe for, what the building would be. And then we create a design exercise where we try to reuse this building, based upon that program. So that's the second step to the project. But I think both of those two things could be pulled out just so that sooner what your long-term goal and objective is for this building, and whether you go ahead and jump in and repair the roof, and what's that value, all those sorts of things. So what I will do is provide a proposal for us to do the study work so that you guys can vote on it at your meeting coming up. And then what I'm hoping is that for your January meeting, we can have a fee proposal for the comprehensive study. We'll have a pretty good feel as to what direction we need to go, and then have that to be able to put in front of you as well. So is there are we on the same page as far as what your goals are for the sewer project and then this facility?
I think it's pretty smart to pull both those out and do them separate, because we need something
Well, and I think it can help the overall study if you've got some information and decisions made on these pieces. It can help us make better progress there. So the deliverables that I would envision for this study would be the report that would identify, what the issues and deficiencies were, what the engineer's recommendations would be, and what the associated cost would be to make that repair. So you can see where those costs align. And then, once we move into the reuse design, site plan, looking at the additional property in the back and how that could be developed to be able to meet. Because what happens is when you take an existing building and you repurpose it, you still have to go get a permit. And so you still have to meet those requirements as if it was a new building, so you have to have parking as required for your occupancy. You have to have handicap accessibility, all those things. So a site plan, site analysis would take care of that. And then the floor plan, would obviously be developed to be able to show you how it could be used. And again, that would be developed through meetings where, with the elementary school, we come up with a design, we sit down and present it, and then we modify it, take input. So it's a process. And then at the end, when we feel like, okay, this is something that would work, then we will develop a cost estimate to be able to give you guys the information that, okay, if we rehabilitate it and repurpose it, what our investment is to do that.
Questions, comments, anybody?
That's a great plan.
The next step will be to bring it to the board once we have additional information.
Yes, I'll have the proposals to you, and you can distribute it in the board packets. And then, we'll set up a time for us to get together and then target being able to have the comprehensive proposal back to you by your January board meeting.
Well, I'm excited, we're moving forward on this, because these are needs,
I agree.
desperate needs, and
Did you,
Plan the future.
did you want to go ahead and tell them what the initial for this building was? Your idea? I think you had an estimated,
Yeah.
or did you want to wait to?
For the sewer, it was $8,000. Most of that goes to the engineer that's doing it, and I've just got a little bit of coordination. I will be here, just kind of trying to facilitating it. For this, we were looking at $12,000 to do the evaluation. So that's gonna be our team of engineers coming in and looking at everything at more detail. And then what I was gonna propose on the design was that we do that on an hourly basis, not to exceed, because we don't know how, cumbersome that's gonna be. We may get it to a point and decide that it's not gonna work, okay? And we just kind of stop it.
Right.
Or we may get into it and, take it the full way. But what I was gonna do is give you a not to exceed and just do that on an as needed hourly basis so that it's fair. But I'll put this into a format that you guys can see in writing.
I think we've worked with you enough to know, Brian, you're gonna keep us informed every step of the way, and we can make decisions as we have better information, so.
Well, that's the key. And I think I really am excited about the partnership with Community Tectonics because, they were very successful in what they did prior to this point in your past study. And then our knowledge of the buildings and their ability to do it, I think it's gonna be a good team. And I think it will give you guys, good information to work off from, in the future.
It's a great partnership. I mean, Don Joe built Yates and Ross and Mayfield and middle school and, so he's very familiar, and I think we're the only school system he ever worked for, but, he's got a good working knowledge of the community, and then you have very recent knowledge of working in the community and the buildings you built, and it's just, I think it's a great marriage.
Sounds good.
Mhm.
We good? Number 4, approval of an outdoor basketball court at Black Valley for Xavier Croft. Everybody get one up for a handout. Nate, you get another one for Xavier for Nate.
Okay.
What's it? I tell you what, she knows better what it looks like. I'll fill you in after Prasavia, tells you about it, if that's all right. She's-
No problem. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So we would like, Black Bear Elementary School would like to ask for approval to place a basketball court on our property. We are increasing in our enrollment here on our campus. We have a playground, and when we have everybody together, when we're not social distancing, it's pretty congested. So our older group, our fourth and fifth graders, would like to have a basketball court, not only to use during the school day, but even coming over after school hours to be able to play basketball in the community. So it'll be there for the community as well. I have our PTO, we're working with the PTO, and Cassie Langford is our PTO president. She's put together a project that we can do to get donations, as well as some what the cost is going to be for this. So if you'll look through there, if you look on the third page, you can see there a little bit of a sketch, a drawing, the back side of our school. This is the west side of the school where the buses come in and drop off students. It's also the area where our fourth and fifth grade classes are located. So all they would have to do is walk across the grassy area to the basketball court that will be located along the fence line. And then the playground you can see is, if you're facing the school, towards the back side of the property, so.
Is that fence line and Avery Johnson playground will be behind it? Is that right? Am I getting
Now
that right?
okay, so the fence line for the Avery Johnson Park is actually behind the playground where you see the playground sketch. So that fence line there is, it backs up to the community there, Blythe Avenue, community.
Okay.
There's houses along there. Okay, and so that clear area, we would still have some grassy area there for kids to play, other sports like frisbee, toss, or things like that. If you keep looking on the next page, we do have a little bit of a description of how much it's gonna cost, bid, what's involved in that cost. So roughly $5,900 would be needed for the engineering, the excavating, the grading, the stone, and the asphalt topping. All right, all the labor and equipment is donated. Paul Roderick is going to actually install the 2 basketball goals. And then we have Caldwell Paving is going to do the rest, the equipment area. Any questions for me?
Very well put together.
Yeah,
Do I understand that you're saying that this 5,900 or the 7,500, I think was the total, you're hoping to get through donations?
Yes, so, yes, ma'am. The $1,400 would be, or the $1,600 would be for the goals, and then the $5,900 would be for all of the other, the excavating, the grading, and all of that. But the donations would come, we do need donations, we'll have to have donations. We obviously do not have that much money in our budget, but we have had some people who have donated labor. Like I said, Paul Roderick is gonna donate his labor. And then we're looking for other. We just need to have your approval to go ahead with this project.
The group that used to do these are not doing this at all anymore, so there's no chance they might help down the road, help.
I think you're talking about Norton?
yeah, Bartley, Norton.
No.
He's helping with the goals, right, as far as getting the goals. And then Jonathan was part of that group. So, and generally speaking, where you see the 5,900 is for materials, on a project like that, cost is generally 50% materials and 50% labor. So you can see that the donation part, that if you were to estimate the donation, it would be about the same as what he's doing on labor, that he's giving to the school for the basketball system.
I drove by Arnold from the way to the meeting. It's gonna be the same size as Arnold's is.
Yes,
2 goals.
yes, sir.
Other comments, questions? Anybody else? Dr. Dyer?
Recommendation, move forward.
Alright.
We need to make a vote on this, right?
Yes. Because it'll need to be a board vote.
I recommend that we, follow the plan here that, Crom has for the basketball goal at like that, the basketball,
Court.
Yeah.
okay.
Okay. It'll be in the
Thank you very much.
Monday meeting.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
I think that concludes. Just want to tell y'all, I made a challenge this morning for all the Cleveland City School Board and the County School Board. Jump in and help on the empty stocking.
I was gonna beat you this year and challenge you.
Oh, I got bigger too. Dr. Dyer was on Monday, I think.
I was on Monday.
You didn't challenge us though, you did.
I'm not elected, so.
That's a good thing. Anybody else have anything?
I have, no, you,
Well, we're live.
I'll just talk to you about that.
Okay. Otherwise, nothing else? We adjourned and see you Monday at 5:30.
Hey, Kyle,
What's going on, man?
Candy Creek Cherry looks so good.
We have a board.
We have so few.
Yeah, we're still working on it.